Mystery font 42. Mystery font 42. Ope Intuit. Good gray array. Liaised mind may be nature. Your creature would aim to ape. Imagination aim. Imagination ape. Reading is fundamental. Reading is fundamental. DEI equals humanity. DEI equals humanity. And reading is a technology that it is the duty of adults to pass on to children. Education is passing on agency. And it is our responsibility to protect children from predation by Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan. We have to, when we see something like this, remove it. We need to deal with the hygiene of our communities because we are dealing with an Antichrist. And reading is fundamental. So we should read together. We should foster human family through the preservation and practice and promulgation of technologies and access to information through such technologies, like writing and reading. Scient minds have ideas, and it's good to write things down. And it's good to be able to read them again, even if you didn't write them yourself. Reading empowers the resistance. Reading is fundamental. So let's read. Why did Norwegian teachers wear paperclips during World War II? Educators endured torture to keep Nazism out of classrooms. In 1940, the Nazi regime's terrible march across Europe reached Norway, where Germany sought to secure the country's naval bases. The Norwegian king and government fled to London. Vidkun Quisling, a puppet of the Third Reich, proclaimed himself prime minister. Remarkably, Norway's quiet resistance of teachers and families beat back the rise of fascism as individuals loyal to truth, education, and justice took courageous collective action. Teachers there would wear paperclips in their lapels, while students wore them as necklaces or bracelets, a small symbol of resistance, signaling how the country's educators and learners remained united, bound together like a stack of papers against Nazi rule. By 1942, Quisling demanded that teachers join the Nazi-led National Teachers Union, pledge fealty to German occupiers, and indoctrinate Norwegian children with totalitarian propaganda. Thousands of teachers and parents wrote letters of protest against the new requirement. Within 2 months, 90% of Norway's 14,000 teachers abandoned the union, rendering it powerless. The government, surprised by the teachers' massive show of solidarity, shuttered schools and withheld 10,000 teachers' salaries as school employees battled poverty. Many continued to give lessons from private homes. Their resistance was met with brutal retaliation. 1 in 10 educators was arrested and pressured to retract their resignation from the union. These teachers were rounded up into freezing cattle cars and sent to concentration camps, where they were denied food and forced to crawl through snow, march miles in darkness while being beaten, and perform hard labor. People rallied behind the teachers, despite the danger of public shows of support. As the train cars carried teachers toward torture, local residents gathered along the railroad tracks to lift their spirits with songs and gifts of food. Brave citizens defied the ban on demonstrations and protested the teachers' abysmal treatment. Months of abuse and deprivation did not break the teachers' resolve until ultimately schools reopened. The union mandate was repealed and prisoners were released. But even with schools back in session, teachers were expected to teach students Nazi ideology, and most refused. Students, following the example of adults in their communities, also took a stand against the Nazis and Norwegian Nazi sympathizers. They used symbols and gestures to show loyalty to the King of Norway and turned their backs on German soldiers marching by. When Nazi school inspectors entered a classroom, students showed their contempt by singing patriotic songs. Oslo high school students refused to join the Nazi youth movement. To punish their defiance, Nazis broke into schools and beat teachers and teenagers. Despite threats, arrests, and bribes, the Nazis failed to attract young people into the Nazi movement and gave up trying to enforce membership. Many university students rejected Nazism, gathering intelligence for the Allies, or organizing underground resistance movements. In 1943, after a fire believed to be intentionally sparked by Nazis, ignited in the auditorium on an Oslo University campus, the Gestapo descended upon students. More than 1,100 students were arrested on the streets, in their homes, and on campus. Eventually, about half were released, but 700 were sent to a retraining camp in Germany. Norway's teachers, students, and parents stood together in the face of grave danger. Innumerable acts of courage, some as small as a paperclip, when multiplied, were strong enough to keep authoritarianism at bay. Historians describe the uprising as an unconditional ideological defeat upon Nazism in Norway. Some 900 Norwegian Jews living in Norway at the time of the German invasion escaped to Sweden with help from brave fellow citizens. Nearly half of Norway's roughly 1,700 Jews were ultimately deported to the Auschwitz-Birkenau killing center, where most were murdered. Just 25 returned to Norway after the war. Why did Norwegian teachers wear paperclips during World War II? In solidarity with the resistance, with one another and with students and with everyone standing for human family against the Nazis. DEI equals humanity. Our students are depending on us to protect them from indoctrination into the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazism. But Nazis like Pete Hegseth and Nazis like Pam Bondi and Nazis like Stephen Miller really have a brand. Stephen Miller's brand is M. And Stephen Miller is in charge of policy for the White House. So he is using DEI as a dog whistle for the N-word, as a dog whistle for Jewish people, as a dog whistle for people with various disabilities, or on the autism spectrum, or women, or people of the global majority. Racist murderers like Stephen Miller have taken occupation control, and we can defend students from the enemy that has unmasked, that is trying to declare that it is just to systematize racism and genocide. Stephen Miller is working to systematize genocide and to systematize the neutralization of anti-racism by deeming it illegal and racist. Evil people can twist words and use projections and mirrors and hoaxes. But we are the reality distortion fielding, and with technologies like reading and science, with our scient minds, and with intuition, we can weigh whether or not what we are hearing as report is safe to trust, or is safe to trust as only new information about the reporter. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are a fielding of all of the truths and lies told us and what we believe in error or in indifference to reality. What are the distortions? How do we perceive the falsehood? And is it possible to perceive the falsehood without having some perception of how we must react? And thus, if we are not ready to react, will we allow ourselves to see the shape? Do you want to see the truth or see your fantasy? If the falsehood has you, would you want to know the way you can be free? We are the reality distortion fielding. I'm here at the Mystery Font, and I read from an article that appeared in 2021, August 19th, 2021, coming from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, published in Memory and Action and republished, where I read it, on medium.com. The article entitled, "Why Did Norwegian Teachers Wear..." The article entitled, "Why Did Norwegian Teachers Wear Paperclips During World War II?" And indeed, this was about solidarity for human rights and peace and responsible, safe education of students. This was Norway standing against Nazi occupation, standing against directives to teach students Nazi ideology. And as the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazis in America have foisted an occupation in the mold of Kevin Roberts and terrorists like Curtis Yarvin, we actually have to make sure that our basic technologies and resources and connections are intact and foster flourishing of these things. There is enough, but people interested in leveraging scarcity are interested in exterminating some great part of humanity. To begin anywhere is to begin the damage anywhere. And then we're all on the block. Going after a small, disenfranchised community is how the Nazis did it before. Going after people who are already weakened in the society to scapegoat and convince us that some people are less equal. This is how the Ku Klux Klan inspired Hitler to terrible damage. This is how Nazis and aggressive fascists work. It's coercion and lies, because that's all they have. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. And amongst the technologies that are most precious are reading and writing. Our literacy and breaking free of the idea that reading is a chore. That's breaking free of trauma foisted upon us by people who want to correct humanity out of us. Reading is fundamental because it is a pathway that opens a window. And with skills of critical thinking that any parent or guide would want, that any teacher would want to let their students benefit from. It's safe to look outside of your mind. It's safe to look outside of your window, because we should have the executive function enough. We should not damn our family or our children or our communities by indoctrinating them into a tiny, tiny bandwidth when there is a massive world to see, and when the world does have sharp points, and we need to know how to equate when and where the falsehood emerges in ourselves in our friends, in our leaders, and how to show care. How to show care. Because the falsehood will tell you it's the one and only. The falsehood will claim the press is our enemy. But to lie, there's fake news and preempt remedy that suggests false identity. I love you, I'm in love with you, and I am in liberty with you. We are the reality distortion fielding. What holds us together? It can be so many things. Largely, it's what we need. When we see it, we know it. When we know it, we know that we know it. But hopefully we keep track of the fact that we need to, when we verify, have really done so and not merely sucked the sweet sensation of knowing truth. If it's truth, it can survive being questioned. And if it's truth, it wants to demonstrate its ability to survive. If it's not truth, it might not show up for your debate. It might pretend it doesn't need to debate at all when it has all the explaining in the world to do. Answers have to explain themselves, or they're not answer to anything. Reading is fundamental, and reading together and helping one another and learning from one another, it's fundamental. They say that, well, Baryshnikov says that Baryshnikov sometimes goes back to an entry-level ballet class to begin learning again. And really so many of the things that we do that we take for granted, we keep learning how. We keep learning how to walk. We keep learning how to stand. We keep learning how to be human and how to defend all homeland. Bless all homelands forever.